Greetings to the members of Leaders of All Nations under the leadership of Dr. Caroline Makaka. My name is Thompson-Frenk, and it is an absolute honor to get to be among the advisory board members invited to issue a huge expression of gratitude for the work that every single person watching this video is involved in today. I may not know your name, I may not know the individual projects that you guys are looking at or are doing in your part of the world, but I do know that for you to be part of Leaders of All Nations, you are doing exceptional and vital work to help move this world forward. I am especially excited about today because the theme is togetherness. And I couldn't imagine a more appropriate time for this to be the theme when the Leaders of All Nations has expanded to invite our brothers to join in the work that we are doing across the world. Under Dr. Caroline Makaka, there have been years upon years in which individual small to large-scale projects have completely changed the look of people's backyards economically, environmentally, in terms of human rights. She is a stellar human being. But we started realizing last year that there is a wonderful voice that needs to join ours, and that's our brothers. And we cannot truly be leaders of nations unless we have the men at the table as well. So lots of big warm greetings to our brothers who are joining us today. And what I've been asked to talk to you about by Dr. Caroline Makaka is the theme of togetherness. Right now, we're living in a world in which, so it doesn't matter what country you're in. Right now, I'm in Copenhagen. I'm from the United States. I was born in Mexico City. I see myself as a member of the world family. I jokingly tell people when they ask me what my culture is that I'm Tex-Mex. Yes, in Texas, we do think we're our own country. But joking aside, one of the big things I'm seeing in terms of division, and obviously my country is experiencing a great deal of it today, but one of the big issues regarding division is how people are so aligned within their own individual identities, either politically, culturally, it could be, in terms of race, it can be their sexual orientation, it could be their religion, it could be, you name it, you fill in the blank. And it makes me go back to remembering a story that my parents taught me, and it's something that I'm sure many of you have heard before. It's the story of the spoons, about a man that was invited to take a tour of heaven and hell. And he went down to hell and he saw all these people at a table starving, and yet there was this sumptuous feast in front of them. So it's like Tantalus. They ached to be able to fill their stomachs, but there's nothing they could do because they were only able to feed themselves with these long spoons, which were too long to ever put the food in their mouths. So they sat there in agony. Then he went up to heaven and he was horrified because it's the exact same layout. People at the long table only allowed to eat with these spoons, but then he realized no one here is hungry. And you know why? Because they were feeding each other. That is the challenge that we have to face today. And I know the minute I begin talking about this kind of thing, people go, communist, socialist. No, it's not. It's simply looking at the fact that we are part of a global family. If I don't know if any of you are Star Trek people, but I've always been Trekkie, mainly because I always feel inspired by Gene Roddenberry's vision for what humanity can do. But in his vision, he shows a world in which you have every kind of human being. And it's not that people have put their issues to the side. They still have issues. You still have people that are difficult to get along with. You still have greed. You still have power hungry. You still have people that really like war because they feel they're the strongest in it. And yet, humanity has managed to find a way to survive itself. That is the challenge that I feel that we're doing today. If you look at the work of astrophysicist Michio Kaku, quantum physicist, he talks about there being different eras. And he talks about if great alien species came to the Earth, guess what? Most likely they only managed to have all that technology because they survived themselves and their own capacity for invention, because otherwise any intelligent species could actually destroy itself. Now, as humanity, we've reached that point. We've invented the atom bomb, we've invented weapons galore, and the challenge is, can we survive ourselves? Now, the more beautiful challenge is recognizing that yes, absolutely we can survive ourselves, but only if we work together. That is not a new revelation. That's something you've heard many, many times. But together, needs to be taken even further, because together means that we can't just look at things in silos and say the way to solve something is only for-profit means or only through nonprofit means. And that typically is, I'm not talking about the toxic stuff that we see on conservative versus progressive, but I'm talking about the real definition. A lot of people who are on the conservative side say, oh, we need to make an investment. A lot of people on the progressive side say, you need to help people up first. And you know what? You need both. When we were in Rwanda years ago, my husband and I, we saw this wonderful lady, and she wanted to go in and she wanted to invest. And she was ready to give millions to people there. But she wanted to help them specifically to build up a business. And yet we got up early in the morning because we wanted to see the gorillas. And guess what? It was 6 a.m. We saw this woman carrying these buckets of water up a hill. Then at 6 p.m. we came back from seeing the gorillas, and she's coming down the hill. And you know what? I looked over and I said, has she been doing that all day? This back and forth. He said, no. This was one trip. And we saw our friend who was with us who had intended to give money to start business. And there's this aha moment. It wouldn't matter if she gave this $1 billion to someone. If they couldn't get water in less time than it took for that poor woman to go from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., there is no way they could build a future. Similarly, right now today, within the work that I'm being blessed to do through the Mimicry Institute, we were able to collaborate with a wonderful man named Emmanuel Jal. He was a child soldier. He managed to survive that, and he has something called GUA Africa, G-U-A Africa. And we were able to collaborate with him to get 160 families out of the war zone in the Sudan. But most people go, oh, yay, and that's it. You get your photograph, you're proud. But the truth is that, guess what? That's not it, because then you have refugees at someone else's doorstep. And if you don't make it a for-profit investment for them to then build their own lives, the answer isn't full. There are real challenges facing our world today right now. And we're going to need every nonprofit, every for-profit, every governmental entity, activists, and people are going to have to find themselves aligned with allies they never used to think about. Activists who are out there fighting for change, guess what? You need the investors. Investors who are out there trying to find the next big thing, guess what? You need the scientists. Scientists out there trying to do something, guess what you need? You need the politicians. Believe it or not, we do need all of each other. We are truly in this together. And when I say, what is it in this together? I'm looking at the Sustainable Development Goals. A lot of people don't take it seriously, but that came out of dozens, maybe even hundreds of scientists from every participating member of the United Nations. And they looked at our future of our world on this tiny little sphere floating around the space that we all share. And they realized that the only way we will be able to move forward as a species and survive, maintain, not even improving, maintaining the quality of life that we all have is if those Sustainable Development Goals are met. And some of them are not always obvious. For example, one of the big Sustainable Development Goals is to increase the amount of education and access to capital for women to have businesses. Meanwhile, you have conservatives in multiple countries today saying, don't work, just be happy, only have children. Well, a lot of women are wonderful mothers and want to have children, but here's a fact. Did you know that a woman, whether she's in the Amazon or if she's in the Manhattan stock market, she still gives 60 to 70% of what she makes in her lifetime back to her community? Define whatever the community is, it can change, but it is based on that fact. For some reason, we don't impart the same amount of information or the same values to our sons because guess what? It shows over a man's lifetime, he hoards it. So if we're trying to truly move things together as a species, and as I mentioned before in another video, that doesn't get women off because we raise the boys too. So what are we doing is changing the value systems. How can we make this a shared value system of humanity to say, yes, we need to build, go after your dreams, make those changes, launch your business, have a grand vision, but keep in mind you're a part of the whole. Because the reason why that was so important is not that people were so interested in helping women move forward. It was, believe it or not, it was because they realized that it was like having a stroke. When you have a clot in your blood veins, that's when you have a stroke. Well, it was similarly in economic terms. When money wasn't being moved, it was like economic systems were having a stroke. We as humanity need money to move, not just at the top, but it needs to come all the way through world economies to every economic level. And one of the most and fastest ways that can happen is to help women with their businesses. So these are just some thoughts that I wanted to share today. Now, when it comes to looking at where we are in terms of humanity's future and present time, you know, right now I happen to be in Copenhagen, and my husband and I, we just got to see this little tiny museum. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but it was basically the resistance, the people who fought the Nazis when they invaded, you know, Copenhagen. And what we learned is there are so many people that are only in their 20s, and they were doing incredible things. And you know what? They were no different than you and me. What they believed in was a better world, a free world, a world full of opportunity, a world where everybody could have their voice without fear. That is no different than the world that you and I need to be able to embrace. And the question is, what are we going to do about that? And the question beyond that is, who are we not to do something about that? Right now, this precious, precious planet that we share is the only source that we have for our food, our water, and our means for survival. And we, you and I, have an opportunity to change that into a choice to thrive. But we can only do that if we look across the table at someone that we believe is our sworn enemy, and we take ourselves out of our own mindset and trying to see out of their eyes. Why are they feeling that way? Why do they feel that their survival is so tantamountably reliant on X? And let's try and understand that. Let's recognize empathy as one of our best sources for reconnaissance. And when we understand that and we see out of their eyes and we can see what they're trying to do and why it's so important to them, perhaps we can offer a different solution. If you see someone that you believe is a competitor and you think there's only room for one of you at the top, look at them and see an opportunity for collaboration. If you see a totally different demographic and you think my demographic is in a race against their demographic, no. That is a chance to work with that demographic. Whether that be a different gender, a different race, just a different person. Together means recognizing our common humanity and moving past greed, past the belief that there's only one room for one of us at the top, and recognizing that thriving means sharing that opportunity. Because if I lift you up, you're going to thrive even more. And if you thrive even more and I've lifted you up, guess what? You've enriched my world and I can thrive more. So this is the challenge of today. And right now, while we have a barrage of different things coming at us from every which direction, telling us, hate that person, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. The truth is that there's a lot more complexity going on, and we're actually interdependent with each other. If you fall down, so do I. If you don't have enough food to eat, most likely, and we're in the same little area of the world, it's affecting my world too. There is a way in which humanity can collaborate. There is a way in which we can move across the aisle. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Tory. I don't care if you are, from a progressive party or from a conservative party. I don't care if you're a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, or an indigenous community leader, a Hindu, a Buddhist. It doesn't matter what you identify with. What matters is that you can look at another human being and say, you are my sister, you are my brother. We share a species, and most of all, we share a desire for our species to not only exist 100 years, 200 years, 300 years from now, or just 20 years from now. We want to know that there'll be enough food to eat, that the air can be breathable. We want to know there'll be opportunity for our children so that they can have the same quality of life, and better yet, a better quality. And nowhere in time has there ever been a generation like us who have the capacity to look at each other and see with absolute clarity where our position in history is. Because if you're hearing this, as I always say about every speech that I give, that means you have more access to more data and knowledge than kings, queens, prime ministers, and presidents before you. And the question is, what will you do with that? And who are you not to do something with that? Because you are the promise of generations. You are the person that survived because so many sacrifices came before you. You are the dream of your ancestors. And if you are in any part of this world, but especially to my brothers and sisters in Africa, because I know this is mainly going out to the African continent, what an incredible time to be alive. And in Africa specifically, I want to acknowledge the challenges that you've dealt with. You've had outside interests that have and continue to try and force their interest upon you. And yet the African continent has so much ability. We can't even have our computer systems without getting the unique crystals that come out of Rwanda. We can't, people want Tanzania, look at Tanzanite. Look at what happened there. They allowed other people outside the country to come in and use it and hire outside the country, and it didn't help the people. Look at what Rwanda did. It nationalized it, and now the whole people end up benefiting when computer systems need that resource. There are changes that can happen, and there are people who are trying to make that change. And I want to give all of you my greatest respect, because you are daring to believe you can change this world. I want to applaud you, and I want to tell you how much the people of Africa are inspiring the world today. But to everybody else, including those in Africa, I want to challenge you to believe that you can change the world and to take upon yourself the responsibility for doing nothing less than that. Because we are truly in this together. If you went outside, the solar system, you'd see this tiny little blue-green ball floating around, spinning through space. And you wouldn't see another planet to the naked eye for miles and miles, millions of miles, thousands of miles, that could ever provide the kind of home we have here. And right now, we are that person with the spoons. Will we help each other? Or will we all starve because of pride, prejudice, and greed? That's the challenge of this world today. I choose, and I hope you choose, to be in this together, because together we will uplift this world and become the vision for the future that I know we all want.